Yeah, because for me, when you're 15, you're going to the theater shows for adults. So I don't. For me, it's a show for adults. We played the performance several times for schools. It's made with children from 11 until I think the eldest one was 18, and it was a rough ride. Because our starting point, our inspiration were stories of child soldiers, which is a very dark and cruel world where I take the children, but also the audience into it. And there the research with the group, with the youngsters, was much more, is there a connection between a life of a child soldier and our lives? Is there something that we recognize? Because if you read the stories, they're really cruel. There are children who killed a parent, who were forced to kill a mother, who raped people. So it's really dark. And I had a feeling from their stories, they are telling something about us, about what it is to be a human being. So in the research during the rehearsals with the youngsters, we tried to find a connection. And something that came up, for example, was that when I was asking them during the rehearsals, if, for example, you're coming out of school, a truck is coming into the road and you're taken away, you have to, in 1 second, your life is changing. What is an image that will help you through the difficult times? And they almost all told a story about their mother. And it was one thing that I found back in all the stories of the child soldiers, the last image of their mother, or the idea that the mother was singing to them to fall asleep. So, and little by little you find other connections. So in what you see now in the installation, is it really the story of a child soldier? Yes and no. We didn't film with black children, we didn't film in Africa. I really wanted to tell a story, or to research what if it happens here. So it was a rough but very interesting ride. We didn't, when we started the long grass creation, we didn't have a script, which is difficult if you want to film, because the installation, it's very visual. There is nothing live on stage, so it's only film, and the sound is very important because we worked also with a choir of the Munt, the opera house in Brussels. And Dominique Powels wrote really very beautiful music for them. And we had a feeling, which sounds maybe a bit strange or even ugly, that we had to train the children also. That once we were, because we filmed outside, we filmed in a very old house, that once we were on location, that I could yell hands, and that they knew what they had to do, and that they could respond very quickly, maybe almost on instinct, which is what happens with child soldiers, of course. On the other hand, you're very... when I did auditions, for example, it was the first time that I really said, this is gonna be a rough ride. So, yeah, think twice before you say yes to this project, also for the parents, because I had a feeling that if they come home, probably not all of them, but probably some of them will need somebody to talk to or to tell what is happening in the rehearsals. Because of course you do research in how does it feel to have power, for example, which is something that we know. If you film children on a playground, it's also a very rough world. So some of the things they know. But the interesting point in rehearsal was the point that almost all the children, even the very young ones, the youngest one was 11, they said, I do understand that you reach a point where you do these ugly things. I always said, no, I'm never gonna kill my father. No, I'm not gonna pick up a stone and hit somebody until he's dead. And they all reached a point in the rehearsals where they said, yes, it's possible. And I think that everybody is capable of doing those kind of things, depending on the situation where you're in, but we're all capable.
I guess just another question as well. What should audiences expect when they come to see one of your theatre pieces?
I think as an audience, if you enter my performances, I have the feeling that we are trained almost also in schools to have a story played out from A to Z, and I'm much more, I think it's a kind of trip or a ride where you go in, and sometimes it's much more about feeling what's happening than really understanding what's happening. Very often when people come out of a performance, they say like, I don't understand anything. And when I give the question back and I say, what's the story in your head? What did you see? What did you think? Then very often I get the whole story, like I constructed it completely, spelled out for me. But we're always looking for the right answer, or she means something with it. And I think, forget it. Just go inside and let it come. And it's really much more about feeling than thinking.